So earlier tonight, the news came out that earlier today, earlier this afternoon, Jay Briscoe, one half of the Briscoe brothers, real name Jamin Pugh, died in a car accident. I wanted to give my thoughts and memories of Jay Briscoe because I do talk about wrestling on here a lot. And so the best way to pay my respect is to honor his memory and talk about it because Jay Briscoe wasn't just like any other wrestling personality that dies because it happens all the time. Jay Briscoe was different because he was my age. Him and I think I'm older than him by a few months, but we're the same age. And it's absurd. It really is absurd because as a result of us being the same age, it's almost like I sort of grew up with Jay Briscoe, sort of his career in parallel with my growth. Not on YouTube, but like my growth as a person, going from 18, to 38 or whatever the case may be. And 38 is way too young to die, man. Hell, 48, even 58 is too young to die. You know what I'm saying? And he left behind a family. And of course, his brother Mark. He was the current and reigning Ring of Honor champion. And you could make the argument that last year, the Briscoes versus FTR was one of the best, if not the best, feud in wrestling outside of WWE and AEW. You could make the argument just based on match quality. They had 3 great matches. They Briscoes went to go work for Impact Wrestling, and them boys, man, they were them boys. Lots of memories about Jay Briscoe, but I want to discuss that. I want to talk about like my memories of Jay. So Jay started wrestling in 2002 in some of the early Ring of Honor shows. Mark Briscoe is a year younger than him, so Mark couldn't get licensed in many states because he wasn't legally able to wrestle, whereas Jay Briscoe, he started first, so he got to jump ahead of his brother. And Jay, when they first started, the early Briscoe brothers' work, the guys were very athletic. They were definitely homegrown ROH talent. They stuck with the company through thick and thin, through multiple changes in management, multiple different guys in charge. Jay and Mark would go on to become, I think it's 13-time Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions? 13 times. And Jay himself would become Ring of Honor World Champion. And I remember when that happened. I remember when Jay Briscoe won the ROH World title. I wasn't really watching ROH, like paying too much attention to it, but I had read about it online and I was like, oh wow, like that's good for him. And so when it comes to Jay and Mark, man, these guys have entertained people on the independent circuit for literally 2 decades, yo. And one of the big bummers of all this is that outside of a few appearances for some of the Wednesday night NWA TNA shows back in 2002, 2003, and their current run in Impact, they never got a shot at the big time. The Briscoes were never able to work WWE or AEW. Granted, they worked under Ring of Honor owned by AEW. They didn't actually work for AEW. And that was because there were all kinds of like rumors that TNT or TBS or both of them didn't want the Briscoes to be on television. Now, I don't know how true that is. I couldn't tell you if that's true or false, because to me, the Briscoes, while they can be controversial, because there was a lot of really controversial tweets that Jay made. I think Jay made these tweets. It might have been Mark, but I think it was Jay, like years ago, things that would be considered unpolitically correct. And because they kind of have this, their gimmick is that they're these like sort of these country boy, backwoods, like strong, athletic, like hicks, but they're also really good at being scientific wrestlers. Like it was a very interesting gimmick, and it's kind of carried them throughout their careers. So Jay Briscoe became the ROH World Champion, probably the peak of his career, and it's too bad because I really wanted to see the Briscoes in AEW. I really wanted to see the Briscoes at least have one pay-per-view match. Even if it wasn't a TV match, at least have one pay-per-view match for AEW to make some of that AEW money. You know what I mean? Instead, they're in Ring of Honor, which I don't know how the contract structure is there, but I still would have preferred for them to be in front of a bigger audience because the Briscoes were awesome. But as technology developed from 2002, when all they had was DVD sales for Ring of Honor, all the way to 2000 and the mid 2000, or I'm sorry, late 2000s, early 2010s, when we had the pay-per-view and the online pay-per-views, more people got a chance to see the Briscoes. So their popularity rose. I got to see the Briscoes live a multitude of times. I went to an indie company in Florida called Full Impact Pro, and I got to see the Briscoes have some great, great matches throughout the years. The highlight of my personal life when it comes to my connection to the Briscoes, there's two. So one is back in 2007, they had a match it was in Florida. It was the Briscoes against Necro Butcher and Madman Pondo. Necro Butcher, of course, being this legendary hardcore wrestler who I also had kind of made friends with at the time. I haven't talked to this dude in over a decade, but I don't know what happened to him. But he, super nice guy. And so what happened was he came to Florida, and Madman Pondo's, of course, another legendary hardcore wrestler. Like a lot of the fans of underground ultra violent wrestling recognize these names. So they had a match in Crystal River, Florida, and I remember it's basically a falls count anywhere, and they're brawling all over the building. There's tables, chairs, there's ladders, there's light tubes, and I swear to God, this is some of the craziest stuff ever. I had never seen live. I had never seen the fluorescent light tubes. I'd only seen that on DVD. I had never actually been to a live show where they use fluorescent light tubes as a weapon. And I remember I'm there with all my friends, and we're sitting there and we're seeing them brawling, and I'm right there in the thick of it, where they're brawling in the crowd, and they lay Madman Pondo on a table, and Jay Briscoe turns and looks directly at me, and he goes, big man, help me out." And I'm frozen. I'm like, what? So he wanted me to help him lift Madman Pondo from one table on top of another table. So I did it. So me and Jay Briscoe and a referee, we lifted Madman Pondo on top of their table. They open up the back room, and what do we see in the back room? Mark Briscoe is on top of a semi-truck. I'm not making this up, y'all. You can go watch it. I forgot the name of the event. It was FIP April 2007. I don't remember the name of the event, but basically what happened was Mark Briscoe does a frog splash. I think it was a frog splash from the top of the semi through Madman Pondo through both tables, and they won the match. And that was one of the biggest highlights of my life as a wrestling fan, that I actually was able to help out. This is the kind of shit you only see on the indies. You can't do this in WWE or AEW. It's too controlled, too much security. On the indie circuit, though, it's a different story. I mean, if you don't believe me, look what happened at PWG, where the fans are crouched right there in front of the ring. It's just kind of a dangerous situation, but it's also kind of cool. You just gotta keep your cool on that. But that was a great moment. The other one was I saw these guys wrestling live at the Ring of Honor shows in 2008 in Orlando, the weekend of WrestleMania 24. Right, that was the first weekend where ROH, TNA, and WWE were all running shows that week, and that was a crazy weekend, crazy. So, what happened was, they wrestled, they had their match, and I remember we're walking out to the parking lot after the show, and I guess Jay recognized me, Jay and Mark, and they came up to me, and they were holding. Do you remember the old PlayStation 2 Guitar Hero controllers? You know, the Guitar Hero guitar, but the PS2 one? Because this was back in 2008. There was no PS3. At least I don't think the PS3 was out in '08. Maybe it was. I don't remember. I don't even remember what year it came out. Because I always get the release of the PS3 and the PS4 mixed up. But I forget. It's been a while. But they're holding, I think it was PS2. Guitar Hero guitars, and they're like, "Do you like the match?" I was like, "Oh, I loved it." And it was like, "Yeah, bro, cool, thanks." And they just left, and they went to go play Guitar Hero in their hotel, and that was cool because I've never had a wrestler come up to me and ask me if I liked their match. I'm just a fan. I'm nobody. At the time, I was writing reports for the Wrestling Observer, website, Figure4 F4WOnline.com. I was doing reports of like Florida Championship Wrestling, FIP, and some of the ROH stuff. Like I was doing reports for them. So I'm in the Observer. I'm credited in the Observer way back in '08. And so what happened was, I gave them, I guess maybe they knew who I was, maybe they didn't care, but they were always super nice to me, and they were super nice to every fan, even if they were heels. Jay Briscoe he's a guy who, their style has really evolved, because the thing about the Briscoes that I've always found interesting is they're kind of like FTR, to where they can do anything. They can work lucha style, they can work Japanese style, they can do hardcore matches, they can do character-driven storylines, they can do spot fest, they can do scientific wrestling. Like, the Briscoes can do anything. Jay and Mark can do anything, yo. And it's going to be tragic, man. I really wanted to see these guys have another run with the ROH tag titles. I wanted to see them maybe someday get on AEW, even if it's not on a TV show, maybe on a pay-per-view. I would love to have seen more of them, and now it's just Mark. And I'm sure Mark will continue to work and keep working as a singles. But, I mean, man, it's hard to imagine Mark Briscoe without Jay. You know what I mean? It's very different without his brother there. The whole thing's a damn tragedy. It sucks, man. I have a lot of memories of the Briscoes, like when they brought their dad in, when they wrestled so many matches in Ring of Honor. The Briscoes versus Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, back when they were Kevin Steen, El Generico, that feud dominated 2008. That feud was crazy, dude. They wrestled in every kind of gimmick match you could think of, culminating in the Ladder War at ROH Man Up, a pay-per-view that was named after them, because that was their big thing. Man up, man up. He'll be missed. I'm sure there will be a lot more to be said about Jay Briscoe from all kinds of people. Even Triple H had his tribute. We'll see where it goes, man. Take care, y'all. Have a good one.